Hey YouTube, Brandon Ascari here with another awesome and insightful episode of Ascari Digital's Content Creator Academy, where, as you know, it is my goal to help educate and inspire you to being the best and most successful freelancer that I know you could be. As always, if you haven't already, hit us with, not a double, sadly there's no double thumbs up, but hit us with a thumbs up because you love us. Leave a comment down below with any questions, comments, or concerns. And as always, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, so let's just jump over that threshold and work our way up. Maybe we'll do something cool, I don't know. Maybe we'll just sit here and talk about it. As always, maybe we'll just see what's going on. Anyways, let's start talking about this week's episode, where we're going to be talking about how to ask good questions for a documentary style interview. Are you ready? And we're back. So let's talk about what questions you can ask. How can you come up with them? What I think is the most important thing to remember when you're conducting an interview for a documentary is you need to go in there prepared, but also flexible, because your subject, usually when you're interviewing them, what I've found in my years of experience is that they have something deep down that they want to get out. If it's a story about their life, which usually it is, or something that has affected them or impacted them, they've told that story many times. They've thought about that story many times, and they've sort of formulated a narrative in their mind of how they tell that story to people, and you don't want to try and change it too much. So I think one of the most important things when you're doing these questions is allowing the subject to tell the story the way that they want to tell the story. It's not to say that it's going to give you the most accurate portrayal, and there is definitely opportunity to dive deeper and get below the surface, which is really our job as documentary filmmakers, to go further and beyond and ask those questions. But don't forget to allow them to tell the part of the story that they want to tell, because it is very key to the survival of the project. Now, the next piece of advice I have, many of you might disagree with, but hear me out before you go ahead and do that, because you never know. Leave a comment down below if you think what I'm saying is stupid, but let's move forward and see if you can learn something from me. I really don't think that you should go in there with a list of questions. I think that usually becomes a disservice to yourself and to the overall project. What I think is more successful and a better approach to this is going in there and just prodding them along in the conversation. I think you should be actively listening. The most important thing about conducting these interviews, even if it's not for a documentary and it's for someone's business and they want to have an interview with the CEO or the executive or something, and it's going to go on the website or YouTube. When you're doing these, you need to actively listen to what they're telling you, because the nuggets that they're giving you of that story are going to provoke new questions from you. You don't know the entire story yet, so there's no way that you could possibly plan the perfect questions to ask. Your only questions that you can plan are a conversation starter and maybe a couple points along the way just to get them back on track. But really, where your best and most insightful questions are going to come from is when you're listening to the story. So let's say, for instance, I'm interviewing myself, right? Let me cue that up. This is self who's answering question, and this is self who's asking questions. So, self, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, you know, my name is Brandon Ascari of Ascari Digital's Content Creator Academy, where, as you know, it's my goal to help educate and inspire you to be the best. Shut up. That's not what I want to know. Tell me something. Tell me a story about your life. Fine. All right. So, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, you know where I'm going with this? I hope so. But anyway, I used to be a competitive powerlifter. At the age of 15, I did my first powerlifting competition, April 2009, I think it was, at the Hillsborough High School Bench Press Challenge, and I competed and did pretty well. Okay, so you say that you competed. What made you decide to compete in powerlifting? I decided to compete in powerlifting because I'd always wanted to be a professional wrestler. At the time, you see, I was too young to really be a professional wrestler, so what I ended up having to do was try to do something in sports, because I thought that having a name in any sport would translate well when I was old enough to be a professional wrestler. Oh, that's very interesting. So it was your love of professional wrestling that led you to a different sport. That's interesting. What was it like to compete in powerlifting, knowing that that really wasn't your passion then? For me, it really didn't matter what sport I was doing at the time, because for me, it had a lot to do with my passion for wrestling. So every time I went out there and competed, it was using my passion for wrestling. I used to listen to a song that was a tribute video on YouTube of my favorite wrestler at the time, Shawn Michaels. And that always inspired me to go out there and do the best that I could. I always saw the other sport, powerlifting, as a stepping stone to get me to where I wanted to be. So it always kept me heavily motivated. Very interesting stuff. So then you went forward with powerlifting for how long? And then did you ever end up going back to professional wrestling? Yes, I competed for a little over a year, and I retired after my 5th competition because I found out that I had scoliosis. And with the scoliosis, I realized that I didn't want to keep destroying my body from 2 different sports. I just wanted to do it from one and focus on what was really important. So that's when I chose at the age of 16 to stop with the powerlifting after I'd achieved enough in that, I think, to help my career as a wrestler. And then I focused just on wrestling. How did you feel when you discovered that you had scoliosis? You know, that's either not that serious or really serious. So I'm curious if that's affected you, especially when it comes to sports. Well, you see, the scoliosis is not that bad. It didn't require a brace or anything like that, but it was about a 20-degree curve, I believe, which is a little bit below the threshold. I think it was 30 degrees or more you needed the brace. And it was shocking because I'd been checked my entire life, but my doctor never caught it, so I didn't have a choice. I just decided that I wanted to focus my attention on wrestling. That was my passion. And we're wrestlers. We work through the pain. That's what we do. You see how when we're flowing back and forth with the conversation, what the subject says provokes new questions that help you delve in deeper and find more aspects of the story that you may not have gotten before. So the idea of going in with these pre-planned, preconceived notions of how your interview is going to go really is not feasible in any environment whatsoever, unless it's like your father or your mother or your child or a family member or best friend, where you know them so well, like the back of your hand, that you could ask specific questions because you already know their life story. But in almost every for-hire situation or documentary situation where you are coming on and you're pretty new to this world and you're just intrigued by it, that's one of the driving factors that help you is your own curiosity. Somebody who's actually interested in this story, or at least can pretend to be interested, will be able to come up with questions that somebody who just sits there like, where's my paycheck? I want to go out to outdoor dining today. They're never going to come up with interesting questions. It's just going to be, okay, so how old were you when you did this? All right, what was it like? Yeah. Okay, so you accomplished that. All right. Can we go home yet? No. Okay. So really, being intrigued by other stories, for me, I've always been a fan of history. I always find it fascinating how other people earn a living, how other people live their lives, how other cultures exist. And it's this curiosity that allows me to go into a situation, actively listen because I'm genuinely curious about what it's like, and then I'm able to creatively come up with questions that help almost answer my own curiosity. That's really, when you're making a documentary film, is you should be trying to satisfy your own curiosity, because if you are curious about it, then other people will be too. It's your curiosity that carries through in other people, and the way that you ask the questions and structure the story and actually complete the project that allow other people to see that vision and maybe have the same exact curiosity you do. But if it's somebody who is less curious than us, then you're limiting the potential of the film, bar none. So going in there without a completely mapped out list of questions, being open and actively listening through the conversation like we just did in that back and forth demo with myself, which is probably not the best example because I'm an easier subject and I know myself. somewhat well, although not as well as I'd like to know me. So I'm going to take myself out to dinner and I'm going to really have a sit down and get to know each other. Maybe I'll buy myself a glass of wine. I'll wine and dine myself. And then maybe we'll have a good time, but who knows? So if you have any questions about those tips for asking good documentary questions, I'm sorry that I can't provide you with specific questions, but it's tailored completely to the subject. Please use the example in this episode as kind of a platform to help guide you through the process, and you will find that it's actually a lot easier than you think to get really high-end, successful, and professional results that your clients or your films will be massively benefited from. But anyway, my name is Brandon Ascari from Ascari Digital's Content Creator Academy, where, as you know, it's my goal to help educate and inspire you. I'll leave it at that because you know the end. Leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit me with a big thumbs up. In the meantime, I will see you.